What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is Iowa Primetime Live. Iowa Primetime Live right here on Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Josh Helmer alongside Zach Heine tonight. We are your hosts right here again. Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football, where count them out, baby. 23 days. That's it until we have real life, not replays, not Big Ten Network. No, coming to you live, Iowa football across our radio networks, our television screens, 23 days until the Hawkeyes boot this thing off versus Albany, which, by the way, we found out today is now among that group, Zach, of sellouts for the Hawkeyes. How we doing this evening, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's Micah Hyde, a number of days left until Iowa football returns. And yeah, Albany game sold out. There's only two games that aren't sold out now, Oregon and Penn State, which makes sense given the ticket prices for those marquee matchups at Kinnick. But I have no doubt that they'll be sold out eventually. But yeah, I mean, fans are gearing up, ready to go. And it's just over 3 weeks, surprisingly, until the Hawkeyes take the field at Kinnick Stadium for the season opener.
Well, we've heard just the bits and pieces coming out of Iowa camp so far. What have we heard coming out of Iowa camp? Well, to start that off tonight, let's just hear from the head Iowa football coach who was on the Fight for Iowa podcast alongside longtime voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin, and Kirk Ferentz shared his opening thoughts on camp so far yesterday.
Get better if you're not practicing. So the guys did a great job in the summer program. It was challenging, but they really handled it well. And it's kind of indicative of this team so far. They've really done everything in a pretty quality fashion. So we're 4 days into it. More than plenty to work on and clean up on and get better. But attitude's been good. The effort's been good. And, you can't improve unless you're out there actually doing it, and you got to fail. And we're doing plenty of that right now, but at least the guys are working at it.
The perceived vacancies or lack of depth, call it what you will, are defensive tackle and middle linebacker. You've lost back-to-back great ones in Campbell and Higgins now to graduation. That's always good. But how do you feel about those two position spots?
Well, I'll start with the linebackers. Somehow, some way, we always seem to have good linebacker play. And, Seth does a great job coaching the guys. And I think we've got a lot of good candidates. So that position, the defensive tackle position, I'll kind of lump them together. And we got a couple other spots, too, right now where I'm not sure I could predict who's going to be playing. You got the older guys at linebacker. You got, Harold's done a really nice job, and Shara the same way. So they're the two oldest, most experienced. We got a lot of young guys competing with them. And then up front, Jeremiah Pittman's been out. Unfortunately, he's coming off a knee repair. So he's still probably a week or two away from going. But it's given other guys an opportunity to get in there and work some. And obviously, Aaron Graves on one side's pretty solid. And then you got guys like Will Hubert's really done a good job growing, developing. Bryce Hawthorne, the young man from South Dakota State's really been impressive, and Luke Gaffney. So we'll have candidates. It's going to be interesting to see how it all develops, and we'll get Jeremiah back at some point. So I think at the end of the day, that group's going to be fine.
So there you go. Opening remarks from Iowa head football coach Ed, the 70-year-old Iowa head football coach. He just had his birthday at the beginning of the month here in August. 70-year-old Kirk Ferentz, who still sounds plenty spry, still sounds like he's enjoying Iowa football camp. But we got a couple of early nuggets out of camp right there for the Hawkeyes from Kirk Ferentz. And we found out that Jeremiah Pittman, he is out at the moment, coming off a knee repair. So no Jeremiah Pittman, which is a notable development up front for Iowa. And Zach, I mean, it's hard for that not to kind of be the first thing that jumps out, that Iowa, at least temporarily, is working in some different bodies opposite Aaron Graves.
Yeah, and we had heard from Coach Ferentz at the Big Ten Media Days about the depth on that defensive line. He was pretty proud of the group that he's established there. And I think if you asked most Iowa fans at a glance what defensive unit they were the most confident in going into the season, it'd probably be that defensive line group with Ethan Herkett returning, Max Llewellyn, Aaron Graves, all in there. And so you feel pretty good about that. Obviously, the Pittman injury is not ideal. It seems like, he's a week or two away. So we'll see if he's back on the field for Albany. I think if he is, it'll be limited. It'll be limited snaps for him, against a team that you should be able to beat pretty handily without him. And hopefully, Pittman ready to go for the Iowa State game up in Ames. But it's those depth guys, Bryce Hawthorne and Will Hubert, that Coach Ferentz brought up, that they're pretty excited about those two players. And it's always good to have depth, especially on that defensive line, which is a unit that you're rotating players in and out pretty frequently because of the tax it takes to go snap after snap after snap along that defensive line. And so, it's never a bad idea to build up this depth. So even when Pittman gets back, Hubert and Hawthorne and these guys have been playing, as some first team snaps. And so when they're called into action in a regular season game, it's not going to be new or something, that they're not used to. And so I think building that depth along the defensive line is really important. And then, he mentioned the linebacking group as well. And that's a group that we've talked about quite a bit. And that's a group that I've shared some concerns with about, having to replace Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. And we heard Coach Ferentz bring up Jaden Harrow and Carson Shire as those two guys, the two veterans in the room who are going to be getting the starts there, probably alongside Jackson Rexroth. But that's a unit where a lot of question marks there. And so it's good to hear that they have some confidence in Harrow and Shire and what they've seen in camp. But it'll be one of those units where you just really got to wait and see how they play during the regular season. But that depth on the defensive line is big.
We think we know what we got with Aaron Graves up front, somebody that you and I've sat here and talked about, can he be a double-figure sacks guy for Iowa this season? And the answer to that is, of course, we'll see. But I think he's going to make a run at it and certainly will be very disruptive on that Iowa interior defensively. Pittman, you thought kind of is the odds-on guy to be the opposite starting defensive tackle. That's where he was listed in the spring to begin the spring. Jeremiah Pittman was that other starting defensive tackle for Iowa, but this opens the door for some other names to emerge there. Will Hubert is somebody that Gary Dolphin on the Fight for Iowa podcast also talked to. Bryce Hawthorne was somebody on the Fight for Iowa podcast that Gary Dolphin also talked to. So take that to mean something if you want that to mean something. But I do think, and we can dive more into this around the corner here, as we start looking ahead this weekend, of course, is Kids Day at Kinnick. It's the final open practice that all of us get to be a part of taking in and watching and consuming, but it does kind of ramp up the eyeballs that'll be watching that interior of the defensive line. Now, all of a sudden, with Pittman out of the equation, you would think, right? I mean, he's still on the mend back from this knee repair, so I don't expect to see Jeremiah Pittman in anything other than street clothes coming up in a couple of days on Saturday. So, okay, that means let's watch what Hubert and others on that defensive interior for the Hawkeyes, Gaffney, you name it. What do those guys look like for the Hawkeyes? That's now kind of an interesting item to follow.
Yeah, and one name who was notably absent from Coach Ferentz's remarks was Jonah Pace, the another transfer joining Bryce Hawthorne on that defensive line, because he was mentioned at Big Ten Media Days, but not mentioned by Kirk Ferentz with Gary Dolphin last night. And so that's interesting. Maybe just a bunch of names. He got lost in the shuffle right there. But, I was pretty excited about Jonah Pace, and I still am, as a guy who could make a big impact on the defensive line. So, a bit disappointed to not hear his name mentioned by Coach Ferentz as those names who could be stepping up with Jeremiah Pittman out, especially with Pace being a senior, being someone that they liked a lot and could come in and contribute right away as compared to Hawthorne, who's a sophomore and who many thought might take a back seat this year with so many seniors on that line. So I'm curious to see how Jonah Pace looks on Saturday at Kids Day, because he's someone I think who could be, thrown into a bunch of snaps if Jeremiah Pittman is limited early in the season with that knee injury. So I'm curious to see how he looks on Saturday.
Yeah, it we're hanging on every word, every morsel of football that we can get right now, which shouldn't be any other way, but that did stand out to me too with Jonah Pace. And does that mean that maybe they're moving him around a little bit and maybe he's on the edge at times for Iowa? Is he a part of that defensive interior, Zach? And I think you nailed it if that's the case, that probably coach just forgot to mention a name, right? Because there's a lot of different guys that are impacted.
It happens. It happens,
And I think coaches always try to guard against that, because you and I and fans, we do this to where we're hanging on every word. And if a player's name doesn't get mentioned, then that means that they must not have been as impressive. And that might not always be the case. Here's the quote from Kirk Ferentz, by the way, from Big Ten Media Days, talking about Jonah Pace and talking about Bryce Hawthorne, by the way, the two transfer defensive linemen. It's just like recruiting high school players. You want to get guys that are going to have a chance to really fit in with what we are and how we do it. And both those guys have done a great job of that. There's two different stories in that. Jonah's a fifth-year guy or a sixth-year guy, whatever he is, but he's a grad transfer, so he's older and he'll help us. There's no question about that. And then on the other hand, Bryce is a little bit younger. So from that, at Big Ten Media Days, you would have thought, okay, Jonah Pace is the transfer defensive lineman that's really going to help Iowa. And yet from these remarks with Gary Dolphin on the Fight for Iowa podcast kind of shifts the other direction. You're thinking, well, wait a second, Bryce Hawthorne is the transfer defensive lineman that's going to help him. So I would say that they're still sorting all of that out. I'm not ruling Jonah Pace out by any stretch of the imagination, but it does kind of catch your ears and your mind if you're really hanging on every word.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a good problem to have. I mean, you can never have too much depth on a defensive line or really in any unit on a football team. And so, if Jonah Pace was impressing earlier and now Bryce Hawthorne is catching the coach's eyes, that's never a bad thing, for Iowa to have that depth. And it's a long season. Like, you're going to have some injuries. You're going to have some people who get nicked up and they might have to miss, the rest of the game or miss the next week. And so having that depth built up on the defensive line is big. So whether it's Pace or Hawthorne or Hubert or, whatever combination Iowa throws out there, I think they're going to be pretty confident in those guys based on what we've heard from fall camp.
So one of the rumblings is not a great rumbling. And typically if something's garnering attention this time of year, a lot of times it does have to do with the injury front. And it sounds like Iowa is dealing with a little bit of that on its interior of its offensive line with Bo Stevens. So they're battling the little bit of the injury bug, Zach. So that it feels like one of the big storylines early in camp for the Hawkeyes that, how long is he going to be out and what does that mean for the folks around him? That would be a substantial loss if he misses really any sort of significant time.
Yeah, it would. I think Bo Stevens is kind of he's the guy on that offensive line that gets lost in the shuffle, I feel like, with Logan Jones and Jennings Dunker receiving so much of the offseason attention and preseason All-Americans and all Big Ten first teams and, all of the stuff that they've been named to. Bo Stevens was the guy who was an all Big Ten guard last year as well, and he's returning for his senior year. Like, this is a really good left guard, and you're already replacing your left tackle, which we've talked about so much on the show. And you really would rather not have an entire new left side of your offensive line, especially with a right-handed quarterback. That's the blind side for Mark Gronowski. We talk about left tackle being the most important with that, and it definitely is. But the left guard, don't overlook that when it comes to protecting the quarterback on their blind side. And so it wouldn't be a good situation for Iowa to have a new starter at left tackle and at left guard to begin this season. And like I said, you can get away with it against Albany, most likely. But I don't think so, against Iowa State, especially with a guy like Dominic Orange up front. That's someone that's an all Big 12 caliber player. And Matt Campbell, if he sees, some fresh blood up at left guard, he's going to line Dominic Orange right up against that left guard the entire game and try and wreak some havoc. And so I think it's one of those things where I would much rather than be cautious right now and maybe hold Bo Stevens out of practice, hold him out of Kid State if it means he's going to be healthy for Albany and Iowa State, instead of risking it. But maybe it's a further injury and he has to miss 3-4 weeks, and then you have some big problems on that line.
Leighton Jones sounds like he's somebody that, because of what's going on with Bo Stevens, is getting some significant run there. And maybe that winds up making folks feel a little bit better coming out of Kids Day with the depth that you have up front. We are well aware that Bo Stevens is in that all Big Ten type category. We'll see, down the road what maybe he can morph himself into from an NFL 2026 draft standpoint. I mean, I certainly fully suspect he's going to be garnering plenty of attention across draft boards nationally. But look, that's somebody that I'm not breaking any news to anyone. You want to keep him healthy because of how good he is alongside Logan Jones. But maybe this can be a minor blessing in disguise if you go out and see some faces that maybe we weren't expecting to be in the mix straight away. Kids Day at Kinnick, and they go out and impress, and the run game looks impressive. And Mark Gronowski and the other quarterbacks, you keep those guys upright and protect them. So maybe it's not all bad if you're being patient and precautionary here, Zach.
Yeah, and it's also, I know people don't want to talk about it because it's all about 2025, but it is important for the future of the program too, that they're going to lose 3 really great offensive linemen after this season, and they're going to have to, replace a lot of production on that line. And so it's never a bad thing if you can get a younger guy like Leighton Jones some good reps at left guard. So even if he doesn't play there that much this regular season, that's someone that you would feel confident going into 2026 as your left guard. And then you have Cade Pieper at your right guard, you assume. So if you can have your guard situation figured out going into 2026, that will make you feel a bit better about replacing an All-American center and an All-American right tackle. So it's never a bad idea to develop some depth on that offensive line as well, just like on the defensive line. But we're not breaking any news here. You want Bo Stevens healthy for the regular season. So whatever it takes to do that, I trust Iowa. I trust the medical staff and the coaches to put him in the best spot available to be ready for week 1.
I thought it was notable too. We shared, if you missed it off the top, good evening. Welcome to the program. It's Iowa Primetime Live. I'm Josh Elmer. He's Zach Heine. You can follow us at Hawkeyes Wire. That's where you can catch all of our written work. But of course, everybody should be following at the VOCFB for the voice of college football. And please like and subscribe to follow along with us right here, Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football. If you want to follow me personally, at Josh on Ref, and he is at Zach_Heine on Twitter. I'm still going to refer to it as Twitter, if you want to call it X, formerly known as Twitter, but I'm still rolling with Twitter. The other item that stood out from Kirk Ferentz's initial remarks alongside Gary Dolphin was just to me, and I don't find it in any way, shape, or form surprising, Zach, but I do think it's notable that he immediately mentioned Jaden Harrell, Carson Shire when asked about linebackers. That's not the first time that has happened for Kirk Ferentz and for Iowa, from Big Ten Media Days to now the first 4 or 5 days here of fall camp. But I think that's notable. I think that tells us that, as we sort of suspected, those are the 2 clear front runners to be starting linebackers this season to replace that big-time void that is lost from the duo of Jay Higgins from Nick Jackson. Sounds like, again, it's tracking for Harrell, for Shire, I think, to be Iowa's next 2 starting linebackers.
Yeah, it seems like that's how it's shaping up. And Kirk Ferentz has made that pretty clear from the spring depth chart to Big Ten Media Days to his appearance on the Gary Dolphin podcast last night, that these are his 2 guys that he's going to be rolling with in that linebacker room. And it makes sense. Jaden Harrell is someone that I put as one of the most important Iowa players on this roster entering 2025, and a piece I did for Hawkeyes Wire. And just he's going to be someone that is probably going to have the green dot, I assume, and he'll be calling the plays for the defense, which is usually what the linebacker does. I'm pretty sure I can't remember if it was Higgins or Jackson who had it last year. I would assume Higgins, but sometimes they give it to the off-ball linebacker to call those audibles. But it's a really important role for the linebacker to, be able to call out audibles before the play, call out some coverages and whatnot. And So it's clear that they have a lot of trust in Jaden Harrell, a guy who's been around the program, who's a graduate senior now, and so him getting the chance to play alongside another senior in Carson Shire is not surprising. And I think these are guys that Iowa's kind of been grooming to take over these positions because, they knew that Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson were going to be gone after 2024. And so no doubt they were, getting Harrell and Shire ready to go for 2025. I have some confidence. I do think Jaden Harrell could be a big breakout candidate in that linebacking room. I don't want to say, an all Big Ten linebacker, but I think he could definitely be a solid contributor. And, if we're thinking positively, maybe an all Big Ten linebacker for Jaden Harrell. But I think the depth of that room is going to be really interesting as well. I talked about Derek Weiskopf, the redshirt freshman linebacker who was a four-star recruit and was Mr. Everything in high school. Like, he was an incredible player, and then now coming to Iowa, I think he's someone who could surprise and jump onto the scene as a linebacker who's making some plays. And so I think it's the depth of that room that's really going to be telling of how it plays here in 2025. But Harrow and Shire are a couple of guys that at the very least the coaching staff have confidence in. And if Phil Parker feels good enough to put you on the field as a starter, I'm going to feel pretty confident. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and see what happens on the field.
If you're not following Zach on Twitter, you should be at Zach_Heine, and give us a follow at the VOCFB. That's the Voice of College Football, and at Hawkeyes Wire. We've got a couple other breakout candidates that you have here too. Let's make sure that we dive into that before we leave tonight. But Zach's really putting together a bunch of great Iowa football content for you to wake up and have your morning cup of coffee and read every single day. So make sure you're following Zach. Okay, so follow along with us on, anywhere you consume your podcast. Catch Iowa Primetime live, favorite audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart. And really the same goes for all of the Voice of College Football programs out there. There's one for just about every college football program out there, and I know that it's growing by the day. So make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Share it. That's the best way to grow this program. And if you're so kind, you could buy a super thanks, which directly supports Zach, myself, and Iowa Primetime Live, and of course the channel as a whole, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. So we shared off the top Kirk Ferentz's opening remarks from camp. Of course, you probably are wondering, what does Coach have to say about the quarterback, Mr. Mark Gronowski? And here was Kirk Ferentz talking about just that, his initial impressions of Mark Gronowski so far in camp.
Yeah, a couple of things about him. He was here in the spring, obviously, and but couldn't do much. He could, participate mentally, and he was doing things to rehab. But this summer, when he was able to jump in full speed in June, he tested out a lot more impressively than I would have predicted. Maybe he's a big guy. He's 230, 235. His speed, his agility, his jumping ability are something I probably didn't quite expect. I was pleasantly surprised. And that's impressive. But still, the most impressive thing about him is just the way he operates. He's extremely mature. He's confident. There's no arrogance, but it's confidence that's really impressive. And, just a really mature guy. So he's been a great addition, not only to the quarterback room, but our entire team. And Rusty, he didn't have a great day, especially at first practice. It was a little bit ugly, but he hasn't played in 10 months, played football, or, been part in a huddle. So last couple of days, he's starting to show, I think, the things we hoped we'd see. And he'll be just fine. And then happy about, Hank Brown's really done a good job. He's been here through the spring, and now this is his first camp. And he's really, I think, shown some good things. And Jeremy Eklinski joined us back in June, and a young man from Wake Forest. And I think he's shown some signs that are interesting as well. So, you got those guys, Jimmy Sullivan, you got Jackson from last year. So it's a lot more of a healthy room, if you will, than maybe we've dealt with. We've had some really unusual circumstances, injuries, and all that type of thing. So I think we're in a little better shape there. It'll be fun to see what it looks like here in 2 weeks.
That has been similarly alongside the linebacker discussion of who's sort of leading that group with Harrell and Shire and a couple of other items along the way. That's been pretty consistent from Kirk Ferentz, that we think we're in a much better situation, just the health of the quarterback room, top to bottom. And I'm not shocked to hear that, Mark Gronowski has a little bit of rust. I'm also not alarmed by it either. And I guess, Zach, part of my reaction to that from Kirk Ferentz is, let's not get totally overboard negatively if it looks like there's some rust in a couple of days from now on Saturday for Kids Day at Kinnick. We want to see, and look, count me in that camp. I want to see a highlight play or two. It's exciting, some of what's happening on social media. Reese Vanderzee, and of course, there's one or two commenters out there that's like, oh, great. The defensive backs, the corners are trash. Look at Reese Vanderzee's cooking these guys. But it's nice to see those highlight plays out there, and I'd love to see that as soon as Saturday. But if we instead see a little bit of rust, Zach, though we've been hurt before, that should probably it's worth, I think, before we go see this Kids Day at Kinnick, just reminding Iowa fans, okay, there's probably going to be a layer of rust to some degree with Mark Gronowski, and that should be expected.
Yeah, and spoiler alert for Iowa fans, Mark Gronowski will throw a pick at Kids Day practice. It's not indicative of he's a bad quarterback. It's not a sign that the Iowa offense is doomed in 2025. It happens. Don't overreact to that. But also, we've seen some overreactions as well to the viral clip of Mark Gronowski rolling out to his right and throwing a dime to the sideline. And that clip really caught fire. I know we wrote a piece on that for Hawkeye Wire. And, it's that time of the offseason where fans are just eating up any content that we can get. And we haven't gotten to see Mark Gronowski play really at all because he was dealing with that injury throughout the spring and was just back on the field in June. And so we're kind of just grasping at any kind of straw that we can grab with Mark Gronowski. And the overall health of the quarterback room, it was kind of funny to hear Kirk acknowledge that room hasn't been super healthy the last couple of years, not in terms of a culture type thing, but just in terms of the play that they've gotten. It was a pretty shocking admission from Kirk Ferentz, in my opinion, but it's good to hear that, they're liking Gronowski, obviously, but Hank Brown is someone who seems to have impressed, and that'll be a name that maybe this season, but definitely going forward, assuming he sticks around, because the transfer portal is so crazy these days that you can't really bank on anyone being back next season until they actually are. But, if he's someone that would return, you feel pretty decent about Hank Brown and Jeremy Heklinski as well, someone that's caught Kirk Ferentz's eye. So that's good to hear that the overall depth and the health of that quarterback room is in a good spot. But you're right, Josh, we can't overreact to positively or negatively to Kids Day practice. We're just going to see what happens and, take the good with the bad, and, we'll see how it goes.
Well, I guess I've done a poor job here, by the way, as this is our call-in show on Thursday night, which means that in the chat, toss the StreamYard link, and that's the avenue to jump right in and chat with us. I see a couple of folks hanging on, and we'll just go in the order that they jumped in here. And if you want to chat with us, anything Iowa, football, basketball, you name it, you're more than welcome right here, Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football, where first up, first in, Caden the Diesel Freak. Caden, what's up, man? What's on your mind tonight?
Iowa Hawkeye Nation, you want to talk about a team that's really having a lot of fans saying that, oh, this is going to be a good year, this could be a terrible year. Iowa is just as overrated as Penn State. Let's be truthfully told, and this is speaking from an Ohio State fan. Yeah, an Ohio State fan. Yes, sir, you heard that right, Scarlet and Gray Nation. But the game against Iowa always is a good game, but sometimes it could be a blowout. And I feel like with this season against Iowa at Ohio Stadium, at home, it's going to be a bloodbath. So I'm not going to expect anything least of that game like it has been the last couple of times.
Well, it's good news for
only Iowa plays Ohio State this year.
Yeah, it's good news for Iowa that Ohio State's not on the schedule, Caden.
I think Ohio State's happy that they're not going to Kinnick, because last time that happened, I think it was 55-24. I think that was. Iowa. So Iowa
Oh,
State.
ha,
We'll see.
ha, 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 Zach. Very funny.
I appreciate you jumping in, though, Caden. Have a good night, my friend, and enjoy
Hey,
the college football.
hasn't anybody ever told you guys Iowa State has a better roster this year than Iowa? Truthfully told, because I'm gonna be the first to say it.
I have
So-
not. I have not, Caden, been told that on this forum, but I'm sure there are Iowa State fans that would agree with you, Caden. Hey, we appreciate it, man. Have a wonderful night and good luck to your Buckeyes this season. Though he did not, I wouldn't think, ingratiate himself to the Hawkeye fan base too awfully well tonight. But Caden, hey, man, you're always welcome here, and thanks for jumping in. My man, I know, is black and gold, coursing through the veins. We will not have a similar call with Kelvin, who jumps in. Look at that. He's got his Swarm shirt on. Kelvin, my guy, how are you? Good evening, my friend.
I'm just here supporting you because you're my new friend and such a very nice young man. And both of you are very knowledgeable. I just checked in to say that, and much more continued success, and give to the Swarm, please.
I love it. Yes. Give. Sign
Appreciate
up to
that,
the Swarm
Kelvin.
today.
I just love it when a Buckeye fan has to troll a poor Iowa network. You know, it's like they're born on third base.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're born
man.
on third base. If a coach at Ohio State goes 8-5, he's fired. You know, Kirk Ferentz is born somewhere between first. We're rounding first base, put it that way. So anyway, but I'm just here to support you, Josh, and I love helping you in any way I can.
You have been a big time help to me and to us
Mhm.
here at the channel and with Hawkeyes Wire. Kelvin, I appreciate your friendship and
Anything you want to talk about is a subject for me or anything.
well, what are your expectations for the season? You know, we're getting close. How are you feeling about the year ahead?
Well, I'm a realist. You know, I know we have a floor of 2 wins, Albany and UMass. You know, and the truth of the matter is, you could lose the other games. Any of them games you could lose, right? At Rutgers, tough game. Schiano's kind of the Kirk Ferentz of the East. You know, very disciplined, hard-nosed coach.
Yeah, he's done a good job there.
But, you know, I expect us to win more than 2 games. I don't like predicting, but I went with 8-5. Whether we go 7-5 and then have a bowl win. But, you know, if I'm prognosticating every game, if they put me right down to it, I'm such an Iowa fan, you know, I always have us going 12-0. It's just a problem I have. But I'd say there's 3 games that we're big underdogs in, and we all know who they are: Oregon, Penn State, and at USC.
Yeah.
I don't think we're no underdog at home against Indiana. I don't think that, and I think we're going to kick the Cyclones' rear end because Kirk's going to be going for Woody's record. Kirk ain't going to mention it to the team all week, but I'll guarantee you, he has a bunch of loyal coaches, LeVar and Seth. Every single one of them love Kirk, and all the players love Kirk. They're going to be talking about it on the sidelines the whole game. So, and what are we? What is Campbell? 8-2, 2-8 against Iowa.
Yeah,
something like that.
Iowa has had his number in a big way, Kelvin, and it would be
especially in Ames.
No doubt. It'd be fitting for Kirk to overtake Woody in that rivalry.
Yeah, carry Kirk across the field. As you know, 4 or 5 guys can carry Kirk across the field. Hopefully, I'd pick Seth and LeVar to carry him across the field. The team wants that trophy, you know, so they can go rush for the trophy. So
and they're trying to go get that thing back. They should have had it a year ago, but turned early in the second half on that interception.
Oh my God. Kirk was very mad at halftime about our goal line offense, and if we would have just ran the ball one more time in the fourth quarter instead of letting Cade throw, Iowa State would have never got the ball again. But
I know.
anyway.
That's one of those,
goal line offense,
Zach. That's one of those that it's just drives you crazy thinking back on it.
Sometimes it wouldn't be bad if Kirk would say, "Run the ball, please," like he did in the second half of the Minnesota game when Lester dials up some big play and Kirk says, "Don't you think we ought to lean on the run? We're averaging 9 yards a carry." Pretty simple, but
much to the chagrin sometimes of Hawkeye fans. But yes, Calvin.
Well, Hawkeye fans are stupid. Yeah. Fans can be dumb. I hope I didn't ruin your show.
No.
You're good.
Anyway.
You're welcome anytime.
You guys, I like it when Josh has a buddy to help him. Boy, these ones where he has to carry the whole show. Thanks for joining, Josh, and you did a great job too, young man. So,
Calvin, hey, we appreciate you, buddy. Enjoy Kids Day at Kinnick and the rest of fall camp, and we'll be talking about real football games here pretty soon, which of course is the most fun.
Okay, keep smiling, kids.
Thanks, Calvin. We appreciate you, buddy. Mm-hmm. That is a diehard Hawkeye fan right there. By the way, big time supporter of us, Zach. He's been such a supporter of Hawkeyes Wire and Iowa Primetime Live. So, Kelvin, I appreciate you, man. It's not lost on me or us, your support of this channel and of us. And thank you. Thank you for jumping in tonight. Papa Bird. Hey, Hawk fans. We're starting to fill it up a little bit tonight, Zach.
Yeah, hopefully no more Ohio State fans in the chat. But hey, it's a sign of respect for Iowa. They're coming off a national championship, and they're still tuning into Iowa Primetime Live to hear about the Hawkeyes this year. So I'll take that as a sign of respect from Ohio State fans.
You guys can jump into the StreamYard link. It's right there in the chat. So just scroll up. And if you want to talk Hawkeyes with us, by all means, feel free to jump in here. Not just tonight, but every Thursday night, Iowa Primetime Live. Rick earlier was wondering if Xavier Williams will see playing time. What do you think about how the running backfield, the depth, all of it, how's it going to shake out? I think we both agree, right, that Kamari Moulton is a pretty healthy favorite for that number one slot in our minds. But what about Jazz Patterson and everybody else there? How do you see things starting to shake out?
Well, we saw Kamari Moulton make the Doak Walker preseason award list, which I know you're really happy about, Josh. You've been a day one Kamari Moulton fan, and so I know you were happy to see him on that Doak Walker award preseason list. But he's going to be your entrenched starter, I would assume. TJ Washington and Jazz Patterson are really good backup depth options that are going to see playing time in the Iowa offense this year. I don't know how much we're going to see of Xavier Williams. I believe he's a redshirt freshman, I want to say, or is he a true freshman this year? I think a redshirt freshman, if I'm not mistaken. But he's someone where I would slot him at about the fourth running back right now in that tier. So if there's an injury to a Moulton, a Washington, or a Patterson, I think his playing time could go up. I think that Albany game is going to be big for him because he'll probably see some snaps in that fourth quarter. And so if he's able to impress, even though it is just Albany, if he's able to impress from there, hold on to the ball, rip off an explosive run or two, that might be someone who could see more playing time later on. But I think barring an injury, I don't know how much he's actually going to be on the field during non-blowout situations. But he's someone that in the future, after Kamari Moulton is gone after 2025, I think he's someone that'll be vying for some more playing time in 2026.
Yeah, that's another one of those groups that probably we should be pretty intrigued to see what's going to happen. Kids Day at Kinnick, which we could jump into that in just a moment. But while we've got everybody here on Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football, let's also share Mark Gronowski, his first comments from fall camp. Again, this alongside Gary Dolphin, the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's your quarterback talking about camp so far and how things are going.
It's a great defense, and it's great to go and compete against them every single day and compete against Coach Parker, too. And I mean, he throws out some great defenses, puts out some great calls to make us work, make us think at quarterback, and it helps us get better every day, and I love doing it.
Now, it's only 4 or 5 practices, but you've been here, 7, 8 months? You've been studying tape, getting to learn Tim Lester's offense. Where are you at on that plane? Good?
I feel great, yeah. I'm heading into every single play. I know what I'm doing. I'm thinking through the entire plan. I'm understanding the defenses that we got in front of us. I feel really comfortable right now, and we just got to continue to grow and continue to get that timing with the receivers.
What are the other subtleties that you personally are working on with your body, your physicality, your mental approach?
Yeah, I'm just trying to continue to approach the line of scrimmage with a pre-snap plan that really I can dial in and understand every single coverage that I'm facing. So it really makes the answers easy. If we see a cover 3, we're hitting a certain route. If we're seeing cover 4, we're hitting a certain route, and just making that almost second nature. And that just takes a lot of film watching and a lot more reps too against this defense.
Well, you must sleep well at night knowing you've got that offensive line in front of you, rated one of the best in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, those guys are awesome. Those are all great personalities as well, fun guys to hang out with, and they make it fun out here at practice every day.
How's the pitching wedge? Good?
Feels great. Feels 100%. I was just slinging it a little bit with some of the receivers after practice, and continuing to sling it every day, and it feels great.
Man, isn't it nice to hear Gary Dolphin's voice too?
No, I can't wait to be tuning in and hearing the voice of the Hawkeyes right there on the radio. I mean, so many great calls that he's had over the years, and it's only a couple weeks until he's back on that radio broadcast booth and calling Iowa football games again, which is right where he belongs.
Papa Bird, by the way, formerly known as Hawkeye Howard. Howard, I didn't know that was you. Yes, we similarly are getting stoked that it's about football time. And Howard, happy to have you hanging with us on Iowa Primetime Live. Always love when you're in the house with us. Iowa at the voice of college football. Okay, anything catch you? We got to pay off the tease of the show, right? Which is, what are we looking to see at Kids Day at Kinnick? So maybe we could naturally segue here into that. But what stood out from Mark Gronowski right there?
Yeah, I think just the fact that he's getting more confident with Tim Lester's playbook, I think, is really the most important thing. That's someone that, he wasn't able to play really at all in the spring, as we mentioned earlier. And so he got a late start with the injury. But while he wasn't able to physically play, he was here mentally. He was here, watching film, talking to Tim Lester, learning the playbook. I think that's a really important aspect of it. Yeah, you need to be able to make the throws and that kind of stuff. But knowing the playbook is huge as a quarterback. And so the fact that he feels really confident about that and feels really good about, all right, I'm going to throw to this read against this coverage, but if I get this coverage, I'm throwing to this route. I think those are the kind of things that get lost in the shuffle and, are thrown under the radar sometimes. But it's really important for your quarterback to be able to do that. And so that's really what stood out to me the most from Mark Gronowski, was the fact that he feels good about the playbook and, he feels good about running that Tim Lester style of offense, which is something that, we saw work pretty well for Iowa last year. And I think with improved quarterback play, we could see a big jump here in year 2.
It is a college show, so we will dive into what we're most looking forward to seeing at Kids Day at Kinnick, what we're curious about. But when Mr. T. Hink strolls by and hits that call-in button, oh my goodness. Well, we're bringing Taylor Hink on into the house. T. Hink, what's up, man? How are you, buddy?
How's it going?
Zach, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
And I'm doing well as well. What's on your mind, buddy?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. We got you.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're good, man. We're ready for some football. I said this the other day, and I really do mean it, which could be troubling for me. I love getting to sit back and dissect the tape from Kids Day at Kinnick. The open spring practice, the Kids Day at Kinnick. I will sit and watch that YouTube video that gets tossed out there, those highlights, I'll watch him again and again and again, and I will freaking Zapruder film that thing like you can't believe. So I'm fired up about this weekend, man. This is one of those check mark off-season moments to where it's like, hey, football's closing. So I'm fired up, dude. We almost got football back. Away we go.
That's right. Coming up here shortly, got the Iowa State Cyclones in action in about 2 weeks. So that's the start of kickoff. That's when it's coming. But make it quick. Just got done eating. I just wanted to check in. I saw this is Thursday. I got my days mixed up. But how are we thinking about those pictures coming out of fall camp with Mark Gronowski throwing those dimes to Reese Vanderstea? And then they followed it up later today with Deshaun. He just leveled the running back. It was pretty good to see. But seeing the quarterback throwing on the run, those videos get you all hyped for football. So
I don't like we haven't seen an Iowa quarterback be able to make that throw. I think someone said since CJ Beathard that roll out to the right, throw it to a dot to the sideline. I would argue maybe Nate Stanley could have done that, but that doesn't really matter here. It's been a while since we've seen an Iowa quarterback be able to have that mobility and also that accuracy to throw on the run too. So we're gonna eat up all that content we get this offseason from Mark Gronowski and any bits and crumbs we get of him, being a competent quarterback. We're gonna love because it's been a while since we've seen that at the Iowa football level, and so I'm excited to see it at the Kids Day practice and to see him go out and sling it in front of a bigger crowd and just to see what he can do. I really don't have too many expectations right now. I just want to see Mark Gronowski go out and play some ball.
I was going to say, I wasn't on the hype train when he committed. Now seeing all that stuff, hearing Josh over the last couple of months talking about Mark, great quarterback, I think, and I'm very excited. I think we got this one now. I think they can go in, get some good yardage. Like to see him throw about 6% would be a good goal for him, and then I think he'd get to about a good goal, probably 2,500 yards on the season would be a good standard for him. And then see, hopefully he can change Iowa's narrative for the Iowa quarterback room, and then we can go out, try to get another quarterback or try and develop the guys from the high school ranks and develop the quarterback. It sounds like that's what they want to do, the coaching staff, but this will make or break the quarterback room here. If Mark can really turn it around, he can really help the future at the room at the helm of quarterback. So I'll hop off and I'll listen to you guys. And we're getting closer each week to good old Saturdays and I guess Fridays.
Yeah.
Ain't
it beautiful?
Ain't it beautiful? Favorite time of the year when football, you hear all those theme songs, CBS theme song, Fox's theme song. Love this time of year. Love the fall. So hope you guys have a great night and go Hawks.
You too, man. Thanks, T.
Go Hawks. Thanks.
And I'm glad that the Kool-Aid, black and gold Kool-Aid that I've been conjuring up, concocting all offseason, it has worked to some degree, at least with T. Hink. There's one that we've won over here on Iowa Primetime Live, and I hope that obviously it all pays off. So, okay, we've got some final thoughts on what we want to see from Kids Day at Kinnick, but just real quick, Ron from the chat, Mark Gronowski is better, but who does he have to throw to? Well, Reese Vanderstea has been lighting up the social media timelines out there. 4 of the top 5 Heisman candidates were FCS transfers in 2024. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? And it shows you something that Kirk Ferentz has. He's been banging on that drum that, look, great football is great football. And FCS, FBS, it doesn't matter as much sometimes as we think. You look at the NFL, and there's guys that played in the FCS ranks, and they go on and they have sensational NFL careers, Zach. And we're hoping that the Hawkeyes have found one of those guys in Mark Gronowski. Okay, so look at this fancy photograph for everybody out there. Come on, baby. Kids Day at Kinnick. Here we go. Coming up on Saturday. What are we looking forward to? What are the big storylines that you're going to be watching on Saturday?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple in mind, and I'll try and skip over some of the ones we talked about tonight, like the defensive line, the offensive line, and the quarterback room, because I think everyone kind of understands that those are going to be ones to keep an eye on, whether it's with players out injured or with question marks we have about certain positions. But I think, first of all, the wide receiver room is going to be big to watch. Does anyone stand out in that room? Obviously, we kind of have an idea of who our starters are going to be, whether it's a Reese Vanderzee, Sam Phillips in there as well. Jacob Gill is probably going to be your 3 starters. But do any of the reserves stand out? Does Seth Anderson, look really good, or KJ Parker or Jerry Bowie? Do one of those wide receivers that maybe we're not talking about right now, are they going to be, the storyline after Kids Day? I think that's a big question mark. And then also I'm curious to check out that in the secondary as well. How does that unit look? And specifically the safety room. Like, we know that Xavier Wampa is a returning starter. He's been starting for 3 years now, or I guess 2 years, because he didn't really start as much his freshman year. But if he's in there, we have the replacement for Quinn Schulte in that battle over there with Cohen Entringer, and then Zach Lutmer, who's someone that I'm a big fan of in that secondary. And so how does that room look as well? And matching up with the wide receivers, we'll be able to watch that kind of 2-in-1. But I think like a fun way to phrase this, and I'll turn the question back to you, is, what's 1 or 2 storylines or 1 or 2 players that maybe we aren't talking about right now who we're going to be talking about next week after Kids Day?
That's a great question. I think that both Will Hubert and Bryce Hawthorne have a chance, just because we kind of got those initial tea leaves from Gary Dolphin's conversation on the Fight for Iowa podcast. You wonder if Iowa sort of said, or if Gary Dolphin, from being out at practice, said, you know what, maybe these are a couple of guys I need to be keeping my eye on. So one of those 2, with obviously Jeremiah Pittman still on the mend, that one of those 2 names could be somebody to watch. But I'm hoping there's a tight end that we're talking about. And I don't know that either Ostringa or Ortworth would really qualify as surprises. So maybe it's Vonneman that goes out and says, hey, this is why I went and got a scholarship. I think that would be encouraging for the Hawkeyes to see that they've got multiple tight ends to really feel good about. I still love TJ Washington, man. If it's carrying the football, if it's line him up in the slot a little bit, I think that he could be somebody that goes out and makes some plays and reminds folks that, okay, he's pretty electrifying. So that would be someone that comes to mind. Kolarek, I've been talking about Kale Kolarek all offseason, that open spring practice. He looks like somebody that, a little more unheralded in that defensive backfield. But I think if somebody can just flat out play, maybe he's one of those guys that can just flat out play back there. So if it's off the beaten path a little bit, I think that could be a defensive back name to watch. But position groups, I think you nailed it. Corner, safety, the defensive backs in general, that's pretty intriguing to watch how all of that is shaking out. TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, those would not be surprising names or names off the beaten path to be paying attention to. But I'm curious to see, what do those guys look like? Jalen Watson, has he taken a significant step forward at corner? Shaheed Barrows, that is somebody that transferred in. We really haven't seen Shaheed Barrows at all in a Hawkeye uniform. So that in the defensive backfield, that would be a name that, Zach, I'm curious to see what does he look like?
Yeah, and I'll give some love to the special teams as well. Really looking forward to seeing Reese Dakin punting highlights. That's always a classic, and I know Iowa fans want to see less of him on the field this year than we've seen with the punter in the past. But excited about him. Drew Stevens as well, returning to that kicking room as someone who's a bit under the radar, not in terms of he's an unknown. Like, we know who he is, we know that he's going to start, but I think Drew Stevens could really be someone that could really be in that Lou Groza Award competition near the end of the season. His turnaround through his career at Iowa has been a really, really fun story. And then it's always fun to see Caden Weegan returning punts and returning kicks, and see Iping and House one at Kids Day. But yeah, just want to give some love to the special teams as well. It's a unit that has been one of the more consistent for Iowa over the last 5 years to help out an offense that has not been consistent. Well, it's been consistent, but not consistently good. the offense the last 5 years. But special teams are always fun to watch.
I do think, based on what Kirk Ferentz said, that, and we all saw Gronowski rolling out and tossing a dart, a dime on the sideline right there, and we saw the highlights with Reese Vander-Zee. So we have reasons to be excited, but Kirk Ferentz kind of saying, okay, there was some rust early with Mark Gronowski. I do think that's important to keep in mind with this open practice, this Kids Day at Kinnick. So I would, again, just remind fans to be patient with some of the rust that you might see from Mark Gronowski. But I'm going to go ahead and gobble up some of that low-hanging fruit. If you tell me, okay, Josh, what do you want to see Kids Day at Kinnick? Everything that I just said, Zach, and this will fly in the face of that. Come on, baby. I want to see Mr. Gronowski go give me a big highlight. I want to see Reese Vander-Zee go catch a football in traffic and bounce off a couple of would-be tacklers and go make a big-time play. So it's low-hanging fruit, but, I mean, come on. I want to see the transfer quarterback that is the big offseason acquisition. I want to see him wow me once or twice, even though I'm also trying to caution folks just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, all of Iowa's success, I don't think this is hyperbole, all of Iowa's success in 2025 comes down to the quarterback room. If Mark Gronowski is the market improvement that all of us fans think he can be, then Iowa should be in for a really fun season. And if he's not, it's going to be a lot more question marks about the offense. And so whenever you have kind of an entire season riding on one player, one position group, yeah, we want to see what he can do here in camp. And Mark Gronowski is incredibly important to this Iowa football team. And so you want to see him look pretty good, knowing that there is some rust there, knowing that there is going to be some plays where maybe he doesn't look great, but understanding that, like, okay, we've seen the highs here. And yeah, as he gets healthier and as he plays some more and gets more, working with the guys, like some of those lows might be eliminated, but we've seen the highs. And so I agree with you there that, we just want to see Mark Gronowski go out and show us what he can do on a consistent basis.
I don't, I guess, need to see it, but I still would like to see either Herkett or Mad Max go make a play or two, right? Just because you're so counting upon those two guys to be that difference-making pass rusher. So though I expect it, regardless of what happens on Saturday, a nice little reminder would be a welcome sight from one or both, and Aaron Graves, same way on the interior there. Running backs to pop a big chunk run or two. Just because I've been singing the praises all offseason, I kind of would like to see Kamari Moulton look like he can be that difference-making running back at this Kids Day at Kinnick. But collectively, I love what we saw from McNeil dating back into the spring as well. I thought he was somebody that looked like he had some electricity about him very early in his Hawkeye career. So just the running backs collectively, right? Some good work there would be nice to see from this Kids Day at Kinnick. I've been so positive about what Kamari Moulton is going to bring to the table, Zach. But look, it's fair to say you're replacing a superstar in Caleb Johnson. So it'd be nice to see some legitimate production there come Saturday.
Yeah, and Iowa fans, don't worry. You can watch Caleb Johnson play football on Saturday still, not with Iowa, but you can catch him making his preseason debut with the Steelers on Saturday night. So if you haven't gotten your fix of football through Kids Day and stuff, and you want to check out a former Hawk, Caleb Johnson should be playing some big snaps there in that preseason game. But yeah, that running back room is one where you always want to see them, pop off a big play, especially Moulton. Jazz Patterson is someone I think who has been kind of flying under the radar as well this offseason, and he played well in his limited snaps last year. I was really impressed with what we got from Jazz Patterson, and I think he's someone that could really slot into that backup running back role, and maybe even a running back tandem with Kamari Moulton. If I don't think they'll play it more 50-50, but maybe it's a 60-40 split with Moulton and Patterson, and I wouldn't mind that. I think having a couple guys in different situations that you can put out there with confidence is big, and so seeing how he looks. But I mean, overall, I just want to see the offense, show some competency and make some plays against an Iowa defense that still is really good, even with those question marks at linebacker. This is still a Phil Parker coached unit that we feel, has the talent to do some really good things this year. I want to see Iowa's offense go out there and win a couple of those reps against that unit.
Just a couple of final thoughts on what we're looking forward to, what we want to see from Kids Day at Kinnick, which, of course, is this Saturday at 11 a.m. And for moms and dads that are wondering, autographs, it's all free. Kids Day at Kinnick, you can get in for free, and autograph signing will be happening at 10:30. But I want to see the linebackers, right? I want to see Harrell and Shire and names beyond those two go out and make some plays. I think just because of what you're replacing. And Iowa has shown that it can do this before, right? That it can replace a Butkus Award winner in Mr. Campbell and then turn the page and have great linebacker play as quickly as, well, the next season. So I'm not going to describe myself as worried about that position group. I feel good about how Seth Wallace and Phil Parker, how they'll replenish and replace, but I am curious to see it, right? I want to see what Harrell and Shire look like in action with bullets flying a little bit. So I'm curious there. And, if the offense is a little ahead of the defense at times in this open practice, I don't think that's the worst thing for Iowa either. So on that note, just kind of in closing here, Zach, the wide receivers, not just Reese Vander Zee, but collectively, I do think it's important that we see Jacob Gill and Reese Vander Zee and on and on and on. I could keep listing names for you, wide receivers for the Hawkeyes, but I think it's important that we see those guys go make some plays on Saturday. I'm not an absolutist, right? I don't live in the world of absolutes. You've heard me say that all offseason, but look, I would feel okay, again, if the Iowa offense and in particular pass catchers are a little bit ahead of the defensive backs on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's better to see an Iowa offense that has not had the most consistency the last half a decade, go out there and win some reps at Kids Day practice over a defense that we all feel pretty confident about, walking into week one against Albany, and that they're going to be pretty good. And so it's always good to have some of that healthy competition. And, for the Iowa offense, this defense is going to be one of the better defenses you play all season long, and it's your own defense, but it's still really good reps to go up against that caliber of unit. And I really watch that trench battle too, the Iowa offensive line versus the defensive line. Like, seeing Logan Jones trying to block Aaron Graves and Dunker out trying to guard Herkett. I think those are the fun, one-on-one matchups that are always a blast to watch at Kids Day and at these open practices.
Kids Day, Kinnick. Man, it's so exciting. The fact that we're talking about Kids Day at Kinnick means we are indeed 23 days. And by the time you hear or watch this, it might be 22, 21 days away from Hawkeye football. So fun. Before we get out of here, just some final remarks. You guys are hanging with us, and I love you guys getting to hang with us every Monday, every Thursday night, 6 o'clock. Or shortly thereafter, admittedly, right here, Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. And so when you do jump in and hang out with us, I want to make sure I pay off your comments. Aaron, I've seen some recent social media clips of Mark Gronowski throwing the football. Looked pretty good to Mr. Reese Vander Zee. Kelvin, my friend, Mr. Kelvin Fisher, jumped on the show tonight. He said, Phil agrees with you on Kolaric, and Scott, who is such a regular supporter and viewer as well, Hawkeye fan in this program and on, I'm sure, many other channels as well. Scott in the house says, the good work, baby. Here we are, Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Zach, you're out next week, correct? I'm
out next Monday for sure. Maybe I'll make an appearance on Thursday to talk about some Kids Day stuff. If we have enough, big highlights from Kids Day practice, I'll be able to hop on Thursday for sure. But then the week after that, we're right there with kickoff. We're going to have actual college football to be talking about and previewing, and an opponent of Iowa and Iowa State will have almost played a game by that point. So it'll be great to be on then. But yeah, it's almost college football season, and I'm so excited.
I'll leave it up to the chat and the comments out there. Do you want us to try to pick up the Twitter machine and the phone line and try to get an Iowa State guest on for that season opener, or a K-State guest? Maybe that's more palatable if we get the K-State slant that week as they get set to go obviously across the pond for real football in that 0 week in Ireland. I'll let you guys kind of the majority voice out there. You guys can determine whether or not we actually make that effort in a week's time. Aaron says, I will watch you guys more. I got to step up my Hawks live stream watching. It's almost week 1. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Aaron. And Zach, I am forecasting some Kids Day at Kinnick highlights. So with that in mind, I do think maybe 1 week from today you'll be on that program. But Zach, great job as always. Tell the folks where they can follow you on socials and obviously read your work.
At Zach_Heine on Twitter, and then obviously at Hawkeyes Wire for all of my written work, along with Josh and the rest of the team over there at Hawkeyes Wire. We got a lot of covers coming up tomorrow. We got a media day. It's a local media day for Iowa football, so a lot of good quotes from there. And then obviously Kids Day on Saturday. And so make sure you're tuning into Hawkeyes Wire all the time. We're going to have a bunch of stories coming out right at you like that with all the updates. So make sure you are staying tuned there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. This is it's a feeding frenzy, Zach, for you and I and for Riley and for Scout. Stories galore, baby. We've made it through the dark wilderness of offseason for some real football. Hey, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Every Monday, every Thursday, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Zach and myself, the team here, Iowa Primetime Live, we'll be with you. You can follow us, again, at Josh on Ref for me. He's at Zach_Heine, and everybody at the VOCFB for the Voice of College Football, and at Hawkeyes Wire. Would appreciate if you give us a follow, a like, all that stuff out there as well. Go Hawks, Matt, a parting shot. Matt, good to see you tonight. And, of course, like and subscribe to the channel right here. That's the best way for us to go ahead and grow this thing. If you're so kind, buy a super thanks, which directly supports the two of us and Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. That's it for us. We'll talk to you on Monday night. We'll have real football, Kids Day at Kinnick to talk about. Until then, everybody, go Hawks. Have a wonderful weekend. So long, everybody.